Somehow I am becoming the smart ring girl, and I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I'm also not mad at it. So I was wearing a smart ring at the time that I found out that I was pregnant, and the ring actually detected it before I did. So that is a story that we're gonna get into later on in the video. But first, this video is sponsored by RingConn. They sent me this. This is their Gen 2 smart ring. And here's why we're talking about it today. This ring has some features that I haven't seen with any other smart ring. And because I'm now the smart ring girl, self-proclaimed a little bit, I want you guys to make the best and most informed decision when purchasing a smart ring. In order to give this a very thorough test, I wore this ring for 2 weeks on my trip to Japan. There are a few variables that you should keep in mind when looking at my results. I am pregnant for one thing. This got to see some jet lag in full force going to Japan and coming home, on top of me being pregnant and already have a fairly stress-induced body right now. My body's under a lot of pressure. And number 3, I couldn't necessarily test to see how this ring reacted to me drinking alcohol, because I know with some of the other smart rings in the past, you can actually see some differences in your body temperature, in your sleep patterns, things like that. I can't drink alcohol, so I can't show you those results, but I can tell you still about the accuracy of what this ring picked up and some of the other things that I really love about it and that are different. So this is a RingConn Gen 2 dedicated video with my input from some of the rings I have experienced and tried in the past. Very last disclaimer before we get into the features of this ring. I am not testing necessarily the complete accuracy of these results to see which is the most accurate. I'm not comparing it to anything. I'm not comparing it to a smartwatch or any other ring or a step counter or a heart monitor. I'm giving you an overview of how I felt wearing this ring, whether I felt the results were an accurate representation for me of what was happening that day, whether it was easy to use, whether it was comfortable, the battery life, things that I think are really going to matter for the average person and what's going to make the most sense for you in particular as a buyer and who this ring might be best for. First things first, let's go over some of the high level specs of the RingConn Gen 2. And I feel like I'm going to keep talking like this throughout the video because I want you to see it. If I'm looking over here, it's because I have the actual brief beside me that's telling me the numbers that I need in order to tell you. I'll be entirely honest, I went in a bit blind when I was testing this ring. I didn't actually look at any of the stats. I was like, without knowing and being influenced by what I know about this ring, which was nothing, let's see how I feel about it, and then I'll go and look into the features and see if it lines up. So the first thing I noticed was that the battery life was incredible. I wasn't getting a pop-up on my phone to remind me to charge it, and it was still showing a lot of battery life left, and I went, oh my gosh, the battery on this is really good. So then I look at the brief and I find out it is fantastic. In fact, you get 10 to 12 days of battery life off of one charge on this ring, which is bananas. Other rings I've tried, I'm gonna say that definitely by the 5th day, you're getting a pop-up to charge. This is 10 to 12 days. And honestly, that's my #1 gripe with smart rings, is that you have to charge it so often and you have to remember, and you can't look down at a watch or your phone as easily to check how charged it is. And if you don't have your notifications on and it's not reminding you to charge it, that's kind of annoying, because then your ring will die and then you'll miss a night of or a day of having those stats. So it comes with a smart charging case, and off of one charge of the charging case, you will get, brace yourself, over 150 days of battery life. 150 days off of the case that you charge it with. Whereas with other smart rings I've had, it plugs into the wall, it has almost like a little stand you set it on, and this has its own smart case that holds a charge 150 days. You can just throw it in the case. That is insane to me. RingConn does offer a Gen 1 of their ring that gives you up to 7 days of battery life, and then if you want to go ahead and compare this to a smartwatch, for example, that's giving you about 18 hours of battery life, so you're charging it every night. And here's the thing about wearing a smartwatch overnight for sleep tracking, cycle tracking, like your period cycle for men who are like, what kind of cycle, like a bicycle? You have to charge it at some point, and although the charge on a smartwatch is fast, it's still annoying. You still would have to charge it every day in order to be able to wear it all night. I said in previous videos, I don't find this comfortable to wear overnight. Although I do love my smartwatch deeply for workout tracking, this is so much more discreet, so much more seamless to wear day to day. The reason that this battery life life is so impressive is because they have their own patented technology. So it's called the RingConn EcoPower technology. Essentially, by redefining optical pathways and enhancing algorithms, we have achieved reduced power consumption while maintaining performance levels. With an advanced MCU chip, experience faster processing speeds, improved performance, and notably reduced power consumption. So it's giving you over 400% of storage capacity with 259% less power consumption. And with all of that, this is also the thinnest and lightest smart ring I have ever tried. And in my opinion, this is the most comfortable one I have ever tried because of that. It feels the most like a ring. It's not bulky. I prefer to wear them on my middle finger. They also prefer, like most smart ring companies, including RingConn, you'll see most people wearing it on their first finger like that. I find this a lot more comfortable for me. And so when it's a thicker band, it is kind of annoying when you're putting your other two fingers beside it. But this one is thinner in every way, and it is also extremely lightweight. I also do really like the design. It seems like it's almost a bit on the square side, sort of like a square with rounded edges. I do really like the design of it, I'm not gonna lie to you. So colors. You get Future Silver, which is what this is. You get Rose Gold, Royal Gold, and Matte Black. My other rings I have in gold. I changed it up with this one. I like the variety. I like mixing metals these days. This ring is also water resistant up to 100 meters, so you can swim with it no problem. And finally, the price. There is no subscription fee with this, which I love. I'm so tired of subscription fees these days. And the price is $299 USD. So that would make it the most affordable smart ring that I'm aware of that includes all of these features. So in terms of the features that are unique to RingConn, we're gonna talk about everything that it tracks, from the health monitoring, sleep, all of that stuff. But in terms of those high level features, the battery life is the biggest, and the fact that it's the thinnest and lightest smart ring out there is another one. And finally, this ring is the first of its kind to offer sleep apnea monitoring. Bear, do you want to talk about sleep apnea monitoring? Oh God. Now, what is sleep apnea, you might ask? So sleep apnea is a prevalent but frequently unnoticed disorder that impacts almost 1 billion individuals worldwide. If not treated promptly, adults may experience hypertension, irregular heartbeats, cardiovascular incidents, diabetes, cognitive decline, and in severe cases, sudden death. Nevertheless, awareness about these conditions remains insufficient. Current monitoring devices available in the market do not adequately address user requirements. Here's what I know about sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is when you suddenly have a breathing interference in your sleep. So I believe you just stop breathing randomly, or you breathe super shallow, and therefore you're not getting enough air while you're sleeping, and therefore you're gonna have some other negative health effects because of this. One of them being that you're gonna wake up really tired and groggy because you didn't breathe while you slept. And typically this can be really challenging to diagnose because you're asleep. And a lot of people sleep alone. And unless you're in bed with someone else who's a really light sleeper and is going, hey, you stopped breathing there for a second, I feel like that's hard to find out that you do. And then if you do have sleep apnea, you might have to wear a certain machine while you sleep. Anyways, I'm not a doctor. These are not 100% facts here that I am spitting, but this is what I know about sleep apnea. I actually have one friend who has a CPAP machine and he wears it while he sleeps. And I feel like he would have known about it earlier had he had this ring. So I actually thought this was really interesting because I know that my dad actually used to breathe really shallowly while he slept. I've always suspected that he had sleep apnea. And so when I saw that this ring offered this feature, I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'm tracking that because I would love to know by the time at least my 33rd birthday rolls around if I have this or not. Fortunately, I do not. But I do think this is particularly handy for those that do. And this could potentially lead to a lot of people being diagnosed with sleep apnea and making them aware of this really dangerous condition they might have that otherwise they would never have known that they had because they are asleep. Okay, let's talk about the health features. That's my cat, that lump there. So when it comes to the app, first you have this kind of little flower chart thing, and that is a combination of all 4 of your high-level wellness trackers. So you got your sleep, your relaxed status, your activity, and your overall vital status. And those colors are like little balloons that inflate, and when it fully inflates that area, that means that you have had a successful sleep or relaxed status or activity or whatever. So right at the top, it's a nice visual to get a sense of where you're at. Sleep, that's the very next one, which I like because that's the one I check daily. You can see your time of sleep, your sleep efficiency, total time of sleep, your time in bed, and then my favorite is this little tracker that tells you at what time were you in deep sleep, light sleep, REM, awake, how much movement you had and when, and then the percentage of each phase of sleep. Next down is your activity level. So you've got rings that you want to close. Your calorie goals, the number of minutes you were exercising, and the amount of steps you got. You can see what hours in the day you took those steps, when you were burning the most calories, the calories you're burning in an average day, so your basal metabolic burn, and then the additional calories you burn based on the exercise that you did. You've got your standing time, the activity intensity ratio, and I'll be honest, this would be a section that I would have been way more involved in had I not been 7 months pregnant. I was pretty much just looking at the steps and going, wow, good for me that I'm 7.5 months pregnant walking all this much. Pat on the back, you know what I mean? So this is the stress area. So normally I'm in this normal zone, and you can see at what time of the day you can scroll through. You were normal, maybe it peaked a little bit to medium, your score based on the time of day, your stress ratio, sleeping stress. That's a big one. If your body is going through something, whether you're sick or whether you're jet lagged or maybe you had alcohol, I would expect to see something under sleeping stress because your sleep is affected, so your heart rate doesn't drop into that restful area. And then you have a stress summary. And near the bottom, we have the ones that you don't necessarily check right away during the day, but that are fun to know. So you have your vital signs, so you have your heart rate, oxygen level, your HRV, your temperature, respiratory rate, things that are nice to have that are contributing to the other algorithms in like the stress section or the activity section. Your period forecast. Here's the thing, it says that this is where I would have been at in my cycle. This isn't a feature I can turn off now that I'm pregnant. So that would be nice to see, something that RingConn could add, because this part is now no longer accurate. And then you have the sleep apnea monitoring. So every day it's pretty much been telling me no abnormalities detected and shows where I'm at on this beautiful scale. Now the fun part. I found this app really easy to use, probably the easiest to use out of all of the ones that I've tried. I could find where each stat was that I wanted to see. It was clear, it was informative, it wasn't too much information. It was exactly what I needed. So for that reason, I would in itself recommend the RingConn Gen 2. If this is your first smart ring, it's the lowest in price. It is the smallest, thinnest, lightest, longest battery life. It's got all of those basic features that you need. I found them overall to be quite accurate, and the app is easy to use. I see really no downsides. Now here's where it gets fun and interesting. Some story times based on my stats, okay? So let's go over to a typical day on my trip, okay? This was a good day. I got a lot of sleep. We did a lot of steps. May 23rd. Look how inflated these bubbles are. What a great day for me health-wise. My sleep was at 91. My vital status was at 94. My activity was at 95. My relaxed status was at 85. I got 7.5 hours of sleep, got a lot of activity. Not a stressful day, my body handled it well. Let's go to the day after I flew home from Japan. So just to give you guys some context, despite the fact even that I did get upgraded to business class, which has never happened for me on a flight like that, and I thought, you know, at this level of pregnant, that's unreal and fantastic, and this should help me considerably. I did sleep a little bit on the plane, but I was pretty much up for 24 hours eating plane food, and my body said no. And it didn't really give me a hard no until the next day, May 28th. I was definitely tired this day. So jet lag, if you have experienced it, it's honestly more than just feeling tired. It can make you feel kind of sick. It can make you feel like you're coming down with a cold. Sometimes you actually are getting a cold. And then coupled with the fact that I'm very pregnant, I felt really terrible. I wasn't doing well physically, and I wasn't doing great mentally either. I felt very overwhelmed coming back. So I was trying to get into work, and it was about 10 10:30 in the morning, and I'd already decided that day, I was like, this is a work from bed day. I brought my laptop into the bed. I'm sitting there working on my laptop, and I went, wow, I just all of a sudden felt so terrible. My heart was beating quite hard. I wouldn't say racing, but I felt sick. I felt really nauseous. And so I checked my stats, and it said my stress level was high. I was laying in bed, and it said it was 85, and that continued. I find it actually interesting that it dipped a little lower to 71 and 78, and then at 11:30 to 12, it still said it was high at an 82. Why that happened, I don't know. Overall stress, I don't know, but I did find it really interesting and helpful somewhat to have that confirmed with the health tracking in the app. Now, something else that was interesting here, and as I pointed out, in your vital signs, you see your skin temperature. I really only had alerts from skin temperature changes when I'm consuming alcohol. So if I went out, had a few cocktails, my sleep's gonna be messed up, my body temperature will increase, and that's pretty typical, I've come to see, and I thought it was really interesting that the app notices that. So when I was in New York in the fall, this is November, I really wasn't drinking very much at the time, and I was getting notifications that my body temperature was elevated, and so much so that it was saying to pay attention. And this was an indicator that something was different with my body and something was going wrong. When I got home, it was only a few days later that I actually ended up taking a pregnancy test and finding out that I was pregnant. So the Ring actually did detect that, because your body temperature does increase when you are pregnant slightly. It knew that something was wrong. It was making me aware of it. Although it wasn't telling me blatantly to take a pregnancy test yet, because I was only like a day late at the time, so the app wouldn't have told me that yet. At some point, I'm sure it would have said like, hey, you haven't really registered that you've gotten a period yet. So that could be an indication of something. That would have been the next thing to happen. But the first thing that it picked up was that my body temperature changed. And this was very early on. When I found out, I was only a few weeks pregnant. So it was a few days after my missed period and like a day or two. So there would have been really no earlier indication of it, other than I did have some like breast tenderness. It's an awkward thing to say on camera, but I thought it was just my period coming. So this tracks things so well, in fact, that it can tell that you're pregnant and that something's up with your body before you even know. And it started to record or register that stress episode or me feeling unwell, and it tracked it as stress in my body when I was getting back from Japan and not feeling well in bed before I even really knew what was happening. I was like, I feel really unwell. I wonder what's going on. And I could check the app and see that, yeah, there was something happening with my body, and that was validated for me in a way. So overall, my final thoughts on the RingConn Gen 2. I think if you don't have a smart ring and you're looking for one, this is a fantastic option. If you just want something that's gonna be easy, that's gonna be intuitive, the app's intuitive, it's gonna cover all of the features you need it to cover. You don't wanna pay for a subscription fee. You want something you're not gonna have to charge frequently. I think this is a great option. Thank you, RingConn, for sending me this so I could give it a try. And although this is sponsored, you saw my stats, you're hearing my opinion. The thoughts and opinions that I have in this video are my own. I wouldn't talk about something on this channel that I wouldn't actually stand behind. And with that said, Smart Ring Girl's at it again with the RingConn Gen 2. So if you like this video and you wanna hear me talk about more smart rings or cameras or any other piece of wearable tech, because I also like talking about those, please subscribe to this channel and give me a little comment in the description to let me know if you liked it or if you have any other questions about this ring or smart rings in general. And I will see you guys in the next one. I'm gonna go finish my pregnancy now. Okay, bye.